Hi, I'm John Elizondo, and this is Launchpad.
We see pollinators in decline. And so what does that mean? That means we're potentially going to see problems in our overall ecosystems.
That is Dr. Jessica Beckham, environmental science and ecology lecturer at the University of Texas at San Antonio. She's featured in this episode. She explains why unwanted insects may be more important than you think. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you subscribe right now so you don't miss any new episodes. Let's get started. If April showers bring May flowers, then what do Mayflowers bring? Insects, and a lot of them. Rain is known for flushing out many insects from their underground nests and forcing them to seek higher and drier ground. To learn more about insects native to Texas and why they are important, we welcome Dr. Jessica Beckham to Launchpad. Dr. Beckham, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Is that right that this time of the year is when we typically see the most insects here in Texas?
Well, this is the start of it. So you're starting to see insects emerging, and the volume of insects will increase and increase over the summer months. Over the winter, you won't see as many. They die or they remain dormant over the winter months.
I know you're a bumblebee enthusiast and a researcher, and so I did some research myself before this episode to learn more about pollinators, just in general, and bees. They're obviously a pollinator, but what I didn't realize was just how important they are. Pollinators are really a key contributor to the agriculture here in Texas, and when I looked it up online, 86% of the land in Texas supports some form of agriculture production. So when you think about it that way, and how big of an industry that is in the state of Texas, bees might be some of the most important workers that we have.
Absolutely. And they do all that work for free, right?
Even better.
Yeah. I think that crucially, people need to understand that insects in general are serving many purposes in our native ecosystems. We have insects that are cycling nutrients, that are pollinating, that are also providing food for other organisms in the food web. And so appreciating that fact and understanding that they are worthy of conservation, not just because of what they do for us, but because of what they do for the environment, that's important. We should appreciate that. And just to go back to pollinators briefly, because I am biased, they are keystone species in our environment. And unfortunately, everywhere we find pollinators, we see pollinators in decline. And so what does that mean? They're keystone species, meaning that when they get removed from an ecosystem, we see collapse. And if they're declining, that means we're potentially going to see problems in our overall ecosystems. And so as we go about our lives, as we make decisions, as we vote, I believe that we should be considerate of how our actions are affecting the overall environment, but also how they're affecting these insects, because they are doing so much for us, like I said earlier, for free. And when we take them out, it's going to be problematic. It is problematic. We see that.
All right, let's change the narrative then. What are some misconceptions about bees? A lot of people shy away from them when they see them. What are some things that we should know about them?
Yes, so that is one thing. People do tend to be very fearful of stinging insects. Understandably, right? It's probably an adaptive trait to not want to interact with things that can harm you. But the one thing that I always tell people is that most bees are not even going to protect their nest. So we have a very small subset of bees that are social, the honeybees, the bumblebees. But most bees are solitary bees, and they will only sting you if you literally grab onto them, right? In a defense mechanism, a last-ditch effort. But they will not defend their little nest. They will not attack you when they're on a flower. If they land on your drink or your soda, just wave them off. They're not trying to harm you. Now, that being said, if you get right up on a honeybee hive or a bumblebee hive, they might attack you. They are going to defend those nests. But generally speaking, bees are not going to hurt you. And that also leads me to the misconception that all bees are honeybees. There are actually 20,000 plus species of insects that we call bees on this planet. The honeybee, European honeybee that we think of, managed hives that are, across the country, that's just one species. And there are thousands of others that are on this planet.
So how do we identify these bees when we encounter them? Because I can maybe speak for myself. They kind of pop up on you sometimes.
Yes.
If you're out and about, one flies in your face and it's like, whoa, what's happening? And you don't have time to think.
Yes.
What are some of the signs to know what am I encountering at the moment while, maybe there's some chaos happening around you?
Well, when it's chaotic like that, if you've not really have a trained eye on what insect it is, you might not know, right? It could be a grasshopper, it could be a bee, right? But what I recommend if you're interested in it, just getting a little bit of base knowledge is, look at some pictures of honeybees. Honeybees are pretty distinct and there's a lot of them. And so that's your main, I would say it's a very common bee that you might see around people. And if you're getting a bee on you, it might be a honeybee. The other types of bees rarely are going to your encounter. Now, people get wasps on them a lot though, right? Wasps are another stinging insect. And maybe that would be one that you would have trouble determining, is it a bee, is it a wasp? Either way, just wave it off. Usually you are not their food source or something they're trying to kill.
I feel like most of the encounters that I would have with a bee, and you can tell me which kind of bee this is, are usually bees that are around trash cans, things that you tend to see a lot of sugary liquids that are being disposed of. What are the type of bees that I would encounter in those kind of situations? I
would say that is very likely to be a honeybee. They'll congregate around on trash cans. I'm always at soccer games on the weekends because my son plays soccer. So at the concession stands, the snow cones, they have honeybees all over them. But again, they're eating, right? So they are not trying to defend anything at that point. They're gathering sugary liquids or other foods, and they're going to take it back to their nest. So if you end up with a bee on your cup at, wherever you are, it's best to just wave it off and it should leave you alone.
I do want to bring up something that we talked about prior to this interview. You said that you had done some early work with fire ants when you were in college. And one of the things that you brought up was that there's something called the Schmidt Sting Pain Index.
Yes.
What is probably the worst either bite or sting that you've ever received during your research?
The worst one was the honeybee. It was my fault. I was learning about some honeybee hives. A man was showing me his hives, right? And he said I did not need to wear any equipment. His bees were very gentle. I believed him. So we went up to his hive and those bees were not gentle. And I got stung multiple places, but the worst one was on my eye, or like right under my eye. And I ended up looking like I'd been in a fight for the next week. I was all swollen. Thankfully, I'm not allergic, but that was the most painful one, I think, probably because of the placement right on my face.
Yeah, I was doing some research about the pain index and seeing some of the insects that were labeled there. And I think there was one that was interesting to me was the bullet ant.
Oh, yes.
That apparently I think that is the worst one of all of them. One of the websites that I did some research on, it explained what it was like. And it basically said it was like walking on hot coal with a rusty nail in your heel. And I want to know how somebody even, quantifies that, if they've ever done that before.
Yes.
But there's a variety of pain that you can endure with some of these
100%. Luckily, we don't have the bullet ant here in Texas, but one of them that's on that list is pretty high up there is the Tarantula Hawk Wasp, and we do have those. Their sting is really bad because their stingers are meant to stun tarantulas. They use tarantulas as their as food for their developing larvae. So they stun. This is a terrible story. Insects do crazy things, but the tarantula hawk will sting the tarantula, but not kill it. So it stuns it, puts it in a state where it can't move. It's like paralyzed, then drags that tarantula down into its subterranean nest and then lays her eggs on it. As the eggs hatch out as larvae, they eat the live tarantula. Isn't that terrible?
That is...
I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have shared that. It's terrible.
I think for people to know, where would they encounter something like that in the state of Texas?
Okay, well, thankfully, we are not tarantulas, so they would not want to sting you. However, we got them here in San Antonio. Tarantula hawks are, I don't want to say common, but you'll see them all across the state. They're big.
I would imagine they'd be big if they're taking down a tarantula.
Yes.
What are some other insects, I guess, that maybe get a bad rap, kind of like bees, that I think we should be more aware of, be more appreciative of, or what that they do within our ecosystem?
There are a number of them. I'm going to start with the wasps. I've mentioned the wasps. They can sting you. I don't like them around the doors of my house. However, they are actually pretty good organisms. They can be good predators that kill pest insects. They utilize larval insects as food for their larvae, and they also pollinate. So you don't think about it, but there are actually a lot of wasps that go out and collect pollen and use it as a food source, pollen or nectar as a food source. So technically they're out there pollinating as well. So I feel like wasps definitely get a bad rap. Another one that people kind of have an ick factor over dung beetles, right? You think, oh my gosh, this is a beetle collecting dung. What is that? But they are cleaning up our environment for us, right? They are using that poop as a food source and then returning that into the soil, right? They're great nutrient cyclers. Honestly, if it weren't for dung beetles, we would have a lot more excrement around us. So I'm thankful to them for that as well, even though people think they're gross. One more group that also people are grossed out by are some of those flies, right? Especially the flesh flies. But those are also such important cyclers. They lay their eggs on carcasses. As those eggs hatch out, the larvae will eat that and then return those nutrients back to the soil. And again, taking care of things that we don't want to look at. You don't want to see dead stuff on the side of the road, right? So those flies help to recycle that material back into our environment.
I noticed you didn't say cockroaches.
Oh, no. I hate cockroaches. I have to admit, I'm deathly afraid of them. I do. Actually, I know why. We're in San Antonio. There's cockroaches. We've got them everywhere. And I grew up in a house in San Antonio that was built, I think, in 1929. So it was just an old house. And we had some of the large cockroaches in there occasionally. And my mom would scream. Like she'd see them and just scream. And so from as early as I remember, cockroaches were something to scream over. And I still scream to this day. You could rob me with a cockroach. I would give you anything. Do not throw a cockroach at me.
Do they have any value?
Oh, I mean, gosh, I'm biased, but sure. They scavenge, right? So you could think of them as returning certain nutrients. They also are food for other creatures. So you could think of them as a source of biomass, but as pests go, they're some of the pestiest.
Well, speaking of pests, the one I think of the most is mosquitoes, which gets worse when it's humid outside. There have been several cases where you go outside, maybe you forget to put on the bug spray, and then later that afternoon, you see a lot of red dots, and then you start itching all over the place. What should we know about managing mosquitoes, and is that even possible?
Yes, absolutely. So mosquitoes, unfortunately, are kind of unavoidable, especially in urban areas, because we do have so many places where standing water will accumulate. And you think, oh, well, we're in a dry area. It doesn't rain that much. Well, things like sprinklers, busted pipes, there's all sorts of ways that water ends up just accumulating in an urban area. And so aside from wearing bug spray when you go out in those certain months, if you're trying to avoid lots of mosquitoes building up in your lawn or your home area, getting rid of standing water, making sure that you are turning over your flower pots, right? Empty out those little dishes. Mosquitoes can lay eggs in very small amounts of water too. So things you might not think about, like a bottle cap from a plastic bottle, that's full of water. That is enough water for a mosquito to lay eggs. And so, just making sure that you're being cognizant of that.
I do want to continue the insect talk, but it reminded me of something. We've had faculty on here before where we talk about a variety of subjects. And one of the things that was emphasized was understanding vocabulary a little bit better within your expertise.
Oh, yes.
I know that the term bugs and insects gets used interchangeably sometimes. Why is it that they're different, or how are they different? So people would understand that this isn't a bug, this is an insect.
Yes. Oh, I love that you asked that. So in entomology, which is the study of insects, a bug is a member of the order Hemiptera. So those are the true bugs. An order is just a level of classification that we use in biology. So hemipterans are our true bugs. Nothing else technically is a bug in the insect world. Although you're right, in layman's terms, people call anything creepy crawly a bug, but technically that's incorrect.
It's fun to say.
It is fun to say, bugs. I do it too.
What are some insects that maybe people should be on the lookout for that are native to this area, native to Texas, that could be inviting themselves into your garden? Maybe insects that we should remove, or insects that you shouldn't remove because they're actually doing good for whatever you're trying to grow.
That's a great question. So one of the insects that we see build up a lot in gardens that is a pest for your plants are aphids. And so aphids, if you don't know, they're kind of tiny, they tend to be green or orange in this area, and they suck the sap out of your plants. And so as they accumulate, it can end up killing the plant. So you could use pesticides to get rid of them. But if you just let the natural order take its course, as more aphids arrive, you end up having more predatory insects arrive that like to eat those. And there's a lot of them because aphids are very soft-bodied and they're full of sugary plant syrup, right? So they're a delicious treat for many of our predatory insects. So things like syrphid fly larvae will end up on your plants. They look like little globs. And then you think, oh, I should pick this off. But actually, they're great. They're eating up hundreds of aphids every day. Another one that eats aphids are lacewing larvae, which also will accumulate in areas where you end up with aphids. One that a lot of people are familiar with are ladybugs. And so ladybugs munch on tons of aphids as well. So I like to tell people if they can, you end up with some pests, but if you just let nature run its course, wait on the pesticides for a little while, a lot of times those predators will take care of your problem on their own, and then you have a healthy ecosystem in your little microenvironment.
What are some that are undesirable, though? Are there any that maybe could cause more harm if you accumulate too many of them, or you notice them starting to make their way into your garden?
Yes, 100%. There are certain caterpillars that will defoliate your plants very quickly. I'm thinking of like your hornworm caterpillars, which as larvae, they can get really big. You might have seen the giant green caterpillars. It looks like it should be an Alice in Wonderland or something. They're very large and they can very quickly defoliate. So if you see those, my mantra is like, don't kill unless you have to. So I would say relocate it to a plant that you don't care about and it can go on munching over there. So there are some that you don't want to see in your garden.
Well, hopefully this conversation has enlightened some people to think twice, maybe before grabbing the pesticide that they go to the stores and grab right away, or to think about the big picture overall. Dr. Beckham, I'll let you have the last word. Do you have one last message for our audience?
Well, I hope that everyone will take a walk outside, look around them, maybe even sit down in some grass and just appreciate these incredible organisms that, we just overlook often. And maybe even give them a little mini air high five because they're doing a lot for us every single day.
Well, Dr. Beckham, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This episode of Launchpad is brought to you by the Office of University Strategic Communications at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Make sure you subscribe to our channel right now, and for more great content, click right here.